Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into a really interesting piece of writing. It's called Nothing Without Love, and the author uses some key biblical texts to build their case. We'll be looking mainly at 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 27 to 31.
And then all of chapter 13, which, lots of people call the love chapter.
For good reason, yeah. And also John chapter 13, verses 34 and 35. These are kind of the pillars of the argument here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the big idea, the absolute core of this text is what the author labels a sermon in a sentence.
Which is,
love is the defining activity of true followers of Jesus Christ. That's quite a statement, isn't it?
it really is bold. And the text spends a good chunk of time unpacking that by looking at the early church, specifically the one in Corinth.
Corinth. Not exactly a smooth running operation from what I remember.
Definitely not. Paul's letter, the source here, wasn't written to some perfect community. The Corinthians were dealing with, all sorts of stuff. Quakes, arguments.
Immaturity, right. Even moral problems and people kind of showing off their spiritual gifts.
Exactly. It sounds like a community really struggling, frankly.
So how does the author connect that situation to love?
Well, this is where what's interesting. The author argues that 1 Corinthians 13, that whole chapter on love, isn't just stuck in the middle randomly. They see it as the absolute focal point of the entire letter.
Meaning love was the answer, the solution to all those problems.
That's the core argument, that love wasn't just a nice idea, it was fundamental. The key to fixing what was broken in Corinth.
Okay, so how did love supposedly fix things? Does the text break that down?
It does, yeah. It gives several specific ways. For instance, it points to 1 Corinthians 12.25. The idea there is that love stops factions, right? It encourages the different parts of the community, like parts of a body, to actually care for each other equally.
Makes sense. Stops people just looking out for their own little group. What else?
Well, it goes deeper. Love is presented as the foundation of God's wisdom, even in the main message, the gospel. Referencing John 3.1 seed, for God so loved the world.
Right. So the whole basis of the faith rests on God's love, according to this view.
That's the connection the author makes. And then building on that, love is seen as the essential foundation for using any spiritual gifts or talents someone might have.
How so?
It points to 1 Corinthians 13, verse 2, basically saying you could have amazing abilities like prophecy or incredible knowledge, but if you don't have love driving it,
it's empty, worthless.
Pretty much. It shifts the focus from what you can do to why you're doing it, which, makes you think, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's about the heart behind the action. The author also mentions empathy.
Yes, linking love to 1 Corinthians 12.26. The idea that love is what makes you truly feel with others, rejoice when they rejoice, suffer when they suffer. It builds that deep connection.
And communication, too.
Right. Cites Ephesians 4.15, speaking the truth in love. So even difficult conversations, if they're rooted in genuine care and love, they land differently. It's not just about being right.
It's about building up, not tearing down, even with truth. That's a challenge.
It is. And the text uses a really practical illustration. Someone needs help, say, with rent money.
Okay.
You could just give them the cash, maybe with a bit of judgment, like get your act together. Or you could offer help, maybe even different kind of help, but do it with genuine respect and empathy.
And the author argues the second way, the one driven by love, is the truly helpful, the truly edifying one.
Exactly. It's about the motivation, the desire to see the other person thrive.
Yeah.
Not just checking a box for charity.
Got it. And then there's that powerful line from 1 Corinthians 13.8.
Love never fails. Yes. The author contrasts that with hate, asking, what kind of legacy lasts? Love, or the alternative. It really makes you pause and consider your own impact.
Definitely. So how does this tie into identity? How does love mark someone out, according to this text?
Well, it argues love isn't just internal, it's the identifier. It points straight to John 13.35, where Jesus says, basically, people will know you're my disciples if you love one another.
So it's the visible proof, the badge almost.
Yeah, the author calls it the clothing a Christian must wear. It's demonstrated love. And that demonstration is seen as obedience to Jesus' command, love others as he loved you. That's John 15:12.
So love that isn't shown is, well, the text calls it phony.
Strong word, but that's the implication. It has to be active.
Now, this is where I think it gets really detailed. The text dives into the original Greek words for love, doesn't it?
It does. And this is crucial for understanding the depth of what's being discussed. Because love in English covers a lot of ground. The text highlights three main Greek words.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's agape. This is the big one in this context. It's described as a unconditional, self-sacrificial love, willing to give everything for the other's good, expecting nothing back.
Wow, that's a high bar.
It is. It's divine love, God's kind of love. Then there's phileo.
Phileo.
Yeah, that's more like brotherly love, friendship love, deep affection, fondness, warmth, usually reciprocal. Like, I love you because we're friends, we connect.
Okay, so agape is unconditional giving, phileo is more mutual affection, and the third?
The third is eros. The text just mentions it briefly. That's physical, passionate, romantic love. Important, but not the main focus here. The key distinction is really between agape and phileo.
And the author uses a specific story to illustrate this difference, right? The one with Jesus and Peter.
Exactly. John chapter 21, after the resurrection. It's a really powerful scene.
Yeah, Jesus appears, there's that huge catch of fish, and then breakfast on the beach. Very human.
Very intimate. And during that breakfast, Jesus asks Peter this question 3 times. And the text emphasizes the specific words used.
What does Jesus ask?
He asks, Simon, son of John, do you agape me? He uses that word for unconditional, sacrificial love.
And Peter's response?
Peter replies, each time, yes, Lord, you know that I phileo you. He answers with the word for friendship, for brotherly affection.
So Jesus asks about agape, Peter answers with phileo. What happens next?
Well, the third time, Jesus changes his question slightly. He asks, Simon, son of John, do you phileo me? He uses Peter's word.
And Peter gets upset then, doesn't he?
He does. The text interprets Peter's grief here as him thinking Jesus is now questioning even his friendship love, his phileo, maybe because of his denial earlier. It's like Jesus is meeting him where he is.
That's incredibly moving. But the author suggests there's more to it.
Yes. The interpretation offered is that Jesus wasn't just rehashing Peter's failure. He was also pointing out Peter's current state. This is before Pentecost, before Peter receives the Holy Spirit in that powerful way. Meaning, the text suggests that loving with agape, that deep, sacrificial Jesus kind of love, isn't something Peter could just do yet on his own strength. It requires divine help and empowerment from God.
So it connects back to needing something beyond just human effort.
Precisely. It suggests agape love isn't just willpower. It flows from a deeper source.
Okay, so did Peter ever get there? Did he come to understand and live out this agape love?
The author argues yes, and points to Peter's own writings later in his life after Pentecost as the evidence.
What do his letters show?
Well, look at 1 Peter 4:8. Peter writes, above all, keep loving agape one another earnestly, since love, agape, covers a multitude of sins. The text highlights his deliberate use of agape there.
He's using the word Jesus originally used with him.
Exactly, suggesting a deepened understanding. And then there's that list in 2 Peter chapter 1.
The one that builds up qualities.
Right. It goes from faith to virtue, knowledge, self-control, steadfastness, godliness, then phileo, brotherly affection.
And what's the final step?
The final step, the culmination, is agape. Love. It's presented as the peak, the goal of that spiritual growth.
So agape isn't just the starting point, it's something you grow into, enabled by the Spirit.
That's the picture painted. It develops, it deepens.
So if this agape love is the goal, what's its effect when it's actually present? What does it do in a community or relationship?
The text says it creates a positive environment, like real warmth, acceptance, a feeling of belonging. It uses this interesting phrase, the ovaries of love.
Ovaries of love.
Yeah, meaning like a nurturing place where faith and spiritual life can actually conceive and grow. It fosters life.
That's a powerful image.
And it includes that quote, you probably heard it, People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care.
Yeah, that one definitely hits home. It prioritizes connection over just information.
Exactly. That feeling of being cared for opens people up.
So, practically speaking, what does this agape love look like in action? What are its characteristics, according to the author?
It's described as always seeking the best for the other person. It's something you share, not hoard. It puts others first, that you first attitude.
Sounds like self-sacrifice is key.
Very much so. Willing to take the blame, the shame, endure pain for someone else. Forgiveness is huge too. It's very outward focused, very selfless.
The opposite of self-centeredness, really.
Completely. And that leads back to that emphatic statement.
Love never fails.
Right. And that challenge about legacy, what endures, love or hate, it leaves you thinking.
So where does this kind of almost superhuman love actually come from, if it's not just willpower?
The text anchors it firmly in God. It quotes Romans 5.5, because God's love agape has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us.
So it brings it right back to the Holy Spirit, like with Peter's journey. It's a gift poured in.
That's the final connection made. It's sourced in God, enabled by the Spirit. And the text finishes with this call, this encouragement to actually pray for a fresh infusion, a fresh baptism of this agape love.
Wow. Okay. So wrapping this up, this deep dive into nothing without love really underscores the immense importance the author places on love, specifically agape love, not as just a nice feeling, but as this active, defining, foundational thing.
Absolutely. It's presented as the core of everything, really.
Yeah.
And it certainly leaves you with something to chew on, doesn't it?
It does. Maybe the provocative thought for you, the listener, is this. Which parts of that unconditional sacrificial agape love feel the most challenging for you to put into practice day to day?
And maybe also, how could really understanding the difference between agape and phileo, that unconditional versus the friendship love, actually change how you interact with people, how you approach your relationships? Something to think about.